Rich people of Reddit, what does this feel like? What's the best and worst thing about being wealthy? Have a very good friend from way back when whose entire family has never worked going back to before the Great Depression. We have talked at great length over the years about it. He says the best part is all your decision making is made without money being a consideration. It's a weird concept for us common folk, but a $300 5-course steak meal in Nick and his favorite $7 Chinese restaurant hold the same value for him. When we first started driving and splitting tabs in high school, he had a difficult time grasping why 4 people shouldn't split a check evenly when his part was half of it. He wasn't trying to be a jerk, it was just completely foreign to him and had to be learned way too late in life. He says the worst part is what I discussed above, a disconnected feeling with the majority of all of us. Every summer his family would go on extravagant trips all over the world, while the rest of us would hang out and play pool or video games. When he got back he felt like he was the one missing out, even though he spent the summer on a yacht visiting different South Pacific islands. He is a good guy though, and now that we are older he has found a great happy medium working a job for fun while always being generous enough to pick up most tabs. I'm affluent, but not rich. My friend is rich so I get to see a front row seat. The best thing is he can do anything he wants, whenever he wants. But interestingly he's put limits on himself, settled down, purchases a normal sized, but very nice, house, and had kids. So he is tied down a lot more. The worst thing is that all motivation to do things must come internally. Nobody is telling him to do anything, so if he wants to accomplish something he has to provide the self-discipline. Also, he is very generous, but has a weird attitude towards money. I've seen so-called friends assume he'll just pay for something because he can afford it. He doesn't, and that cools the friendship pretty quickly. I think the reason we are so close is I've never asked him for anything financially. Yes, he'll pick up the dinner tab more often than me, but I take my turn. Probably every third time, but I never expect it. And I treat him like a person, not a bank. My mother used to have a millionaire boyfriend. We moved into his house. Life was pretty great, lots of vacations, free stuff. But life always finds a middle way, for normal people, on your emotional level. You can't have happiness without pain. Having a lot of money is normal, you find other things to be sad about. They broke up, I still feel the same without all the money, gifts and stuff. The feeling of wanting something, money, is stronger than actually having something, I believe. My story is going to be a bit different. I'm a girl who grew up wealthy but has dated ultra rich guys. This might seem intuitive, but the experience is. Most people cannot simply charter a private plane to Vegas for the night or choose between vacation homes based on the weather in each location, or buy their kids brand new luxury cars every year. I have had the opportunity to see and go places I never would have been able to otherwise. From sightseeing beautiful and historic places, to getting into bars and clubs reserved for the VIPs, all the way down to walking into world famous strip clubs and offering girls thousands of dollars just to come back and party with us. In a lot of ways, it was often surreal. Worst, the attitude some wealthy people have, passing judgment on the stupidest of things, usually how much wealth other people have. Like, I remember other women looking me up and down like I'd just walked out of a homeless shelter or something because I had the audacity to wear anything other than Burberry sweaters and Alexander McQueen shoes. It's not as if I didn't grow up around wealth either. My family is easily within the 1%, but my parents were super humble and always taught us to be thankful every day for what we had because so many don't. Between that, and the other pervasive attitude of if poor people don't want to be poor they should work harder attitude. I had a long run of $300k plus per year, and now far less, so I have perspective from both sides. The upside is of course having nice things, fun trips, handling big expenses like kids' college, all without falling into debt. The downside is that I created a lifestyle that was expensive to keep up, and there was always stress about money. My income was not consistent, more sporadic large amounts. I worried about money as much then as I do now. All that's changed is the amounts. I doubt this will be seen with 4,000 plus comments, but I actually have a story here. My husband's grandfather passed last year, and in February of this year, we found out that he was left an exceptionally large inheritance. We knew his grandfather was wealthy, worked on the Manhattan Project and invested in Exxon, etc., but figured his money would go to my husband's mother, his only child, or charity. A bit of background before I answer the questions asked. My husband and I are in our late 20s. I grew up in a blue-collar, lower-middle-class background. My husband's parents made their own money and didn't rely on the family for their income. My husband and I paid for my school out of our pocket, and while we had to take out student loans for his grad school, we paid off the loans before they accrued interest, before 6 months post-graduation. When we learned about the inheritance, we were in the middle of saving up to buy a house and had no debt to our names. We clip coupons and buy things on sale. When we met with our financial advisor last week, he gave us a checkbook with enough money in the account to buy our first home outright. It feels very strange to know that I don't have to worry about money. I still feel embarrassed when I buy treats for myself. I have bought one pumpkin spice latte this year. Yes, white girl in my 20s here. No yoga pants at the moment, though. The worst thing is worrying that people will find out. My family doesn't know. They just know that I have a very good paying job and that my husband and I are fantastic at budgeting. Everyone expects a payout when they know you have something. Okay, I grew up with successful professional parents in a very rich area. I'm not rich myself by any means, but due to geographical luck I knew a lot of really rich people growing up. I knew people whose parents ranged in wealth from $350k a year to, if I told you their name you'd know how they got rich. There is no discernible difference in habits between the two. I knew someone whose family name gets thrown around when talking about really rich people, and the dude was really almost embarrassed about his wealth. I was actually good friends with him, and he'd always say that he has to worry if people like him or if they like his money. He goes out of his way to keep his financial status private. He and his family still spent a lot of money, but they just kept it really low key because they've been wealthy long enough to have to deal with the negative attention that it brings, including threats to their personal safety. Edit. Funny story. One of his parents would remark that asshole people with professional jobs have just enough money to be an asshole about it. There is also an interesting story when we studied abroad together and had to show our parents' tax returns to get the student visa. I'm pretty sure he got around that somehow. I also knew people who were incredibly wealthy and they spent a lot. Their parents or grandparents or great-grandparents owned large advertising firms or invented some random medical device that made them a shitload of money. And they conspicuously spent a lot of it, and I'm sure they were still living within their means. When it comes down to it, people handle their money differently. This thread just seems so lopsided towards the really rich people just don't spend money and are super classy about it. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's not. I've talked a bit about this stuff before. My dad is an extremely successful corporate attorney, and our family's wealth has exponentially grown over his and my lifetimes. I'd like to preface this by saying my parents grew up dirt poor and we were solidly middle class until I was probably 13 and Dad really started raking it in. I distinctly remember when our summer vacation was a trip to Six Flags long before it was first class flights to private castles in Italy. My parents are religious, my mom is actually a pastor, and they have always juxtaposed humility with excess. If they want it they get it and they get exactly what they want. But half the time what they want is from Walmart, so who cares? The good I benefit from a trust fund and the security that I will never be homeless, bankrupted by a medical catastrophe, worry about retirement, etc. This is a huge blessing. Grew up in a stable home, always had fresh food, clean clothes that fit, etc. Got a car at 16, college was fully paid for, etc. Epic gifts, vacations and trips, a lake house with multiple boats, jet skis, etc. at my disposal. I've definitely benefited from a bit of nepotism, as I now work in the same industry as my father and have my own high-paying job. While all he did was get me an interview, I know my last name carries weight even though I've earned my own place. The bad growing up dad would often travel for business, and sometimes was gone for weeks at a time. Huge chunks of time would pass where I didn't see him at all. It strained my parents' marriage and my dad almost quit in his early 50s. He eventually managed to find better balance. People make assumptions about me and my family. I've long dealt with the assumption that I'm a snob, that I'm greedy, that I'm a particular political persuasion, that I don't care about the common man, etc. Friends relationships can be hard to forge. At the beginning you almost have to conceal parts of yourself. You don't want to be known as the rich guy, you just want to be yourself. In college I was in a fraternity and made great effort not to be the rich guy. Then our chapter started having money trouble, so I'd offer to pay a utility bill or a fee, or a member's dues, etc. I was happy to do it BC they needed it. Over time though, they started assuming I would cover any expenses. At one point the chapter asked me to wipe out their $10,000 debt by myself, in basically the same way they would have asked me to sweep the porch. I was mortified and offended. I had stopped being me and was seen as a bank. If I offer to pay something it's BC I want to. If you assume I'm going to pay for something it's BC you're a big digimo. People dismiss your problems. Being wealthy is not a shield against suffering. I was repeatedly abused as a child, as was my sister. I have severe mental health issues to this day, and I recognize that I benefit from being able to afford the best psychologist in town and have a blank check to cover medical pharmaceutical costs, but that doesn't mean much when you can't get out of bed for a week BC you're so down. I have shitty days just like everyone else, and when I'm upset the last thing I want is to have my feelings dismissed BC other people have it worse differently. Edit. Thank you all for the kind words regarding my childhood event. Please know that I feel my life overall has been a great adventure that I wouldn't trade for anything. Throwaway here. I don't really want people I know to know this much detail about it. My family is very wealthy, probably in the top 0.5%. The reason I say probably is because I was never given a concrete number, but I do know that I have an 8 and a 7-figure trust which will both be given to me when I turn 35. Weird age, but whatever. From what I understand, my family was involved in the steel business back in the day and since then due to some good financial moves it only grew. My parents are both successful in their respective fields, which helps. My parents never wanted to tell me and my sisters how much money we actually have, because it wasn't important in their mind. That said, the best thing is having all the opportunities available to you that are possible. I am fortunate to study at a top 10 university, which will open doors for me to make my own life and not have to use my family's money unless I hit a bad time. My parents raised us making sure that we'd know how to work hard, and always were sure to make us work for the things we wanted. In high school I worked at a restaurant to make all my money. My parents refused to give me or my sisters much except for maybe free movie tickets here and there. I hated it at the time but I'm really thankful for it now. Another great part about it is not having to worry about money. Not in the sense of oh I'm going to buy this $1,000 trillion shirt because I like it and price isn't a thing, but more in the way that I know if things don't work out at some point for me, I have money to fall back on so I can live comfortably while I sort things out. This is the primary difference between me and my peers, who might have to take out a loan or file for bankruptcy. That said, I live the same lifestyle as all my friends no matter how much they make, simply because I had to make all my own money so I don't have a plethora of it to throw away. The worst part is the guilt people make you feel if when they find out how much money you have, as if it's something you can control should be ashamed of. There also seems to be this misconception that rich kids aren't motivated to work, which I hate. For this reason I never really tell people I know about my family in too much detail. Only my close friends really know, but they don't really bring it up because they know it's a touchy subject for me. Edit. The $1,000 trillion shirt isn't a real thing to my knowledge, unless people actually pay that much for clothes, in which case holy shit is it made of unicorn fur or something? Edit 2. My point about the top 10 school was not that the money got me in, far from that. I worked my ass off in high school, public school. Worth mentioning my parents are huge supporters of the public school system and basically told me I could choose where I went to college or where I went to high school, not both. I had good grades and test scores, But the money helped in that I have no student loans and don't have to worry about the financial burden going to an expensive school has on my family. Also, no, I'm not a Carnegie. We're rich but not that rich. A TV show that aired recently here in the UK, John Richardson Grows Up, covered the subject of money recently, both those who have it, such as the kids of a British billionaire, and those who choose to live off-grid. The son of the billionaire wasn't coping well with it at all, as he felt he'd not earned the wealth he'd inherited, and spent his days in his room surfing Facebook. However, a lottery winner, who'd not exactly earned it either, summed it up quite well by saying money doesn't bring you happiness, but it's easier to be unhappy and rich than it is to be unhappy and poor. If you've not seen the show, then it's worth watching. So, I'm not never work again rich, but I graduated with a master's with zero debt, and am finishing up another one, and do pretty well. I'm also marrying a guy that does better than me by a bit, and I'd say we're in the top 10% of the US. Neither of us work full time, or have kids, and plan to keep it that way. That said, I will purposely avoid an income that gets too high because, frankly, rich people are not ones I jive with. I'm a farm girl by heart, and money actually decreases happiness after a certain point. If you want my answer, it is, the best thing about being well off is freedom. Glasses break, phone is crapping out, want a new video game? I don't worry about that stuff, really. I can take a dance class, travel a bit, and pursue my hobbies without logistical worry. When you're poor, as I was raised farm family with 7 kids, everything becomes a crisis. Your kid ruined her pants playing in the dirt, meat is expensive this week, the field trip is coming up. All of those things are genuine sources of strain. The difference between what you worry about within those two realities is just not comparable. Another benefit, social legitimacy. Being well off, coupled with being a woman, I can literally go anywhere and do anything and not be questioned. I can't explain this part, since, allegedly, female privilege doesn't exist, but it really does. No one questions me, people usually help me, I'm comfortable asking for help, that is, comparatively, an even bigger leg up than wealth. I have connections that many people don't. TLDR, people who say that money doesn't buy happiness are wrong. It definitely does, up to a point.